Just a Bit of Bread by Neon Sanketsu, Chapter 2, Rise and Shine. Why do you put up with me like this? I'm poison. I'll just drag you back down. I like trouble. Peace is boring. Life's more fun this way, you know? But why? You'd have a better life without me, your semblance. Nope. You and me, we're besties now, and tough luck. Dolt, you could go anywhere, be anyone. So you're saying I should choose then? Yes, finally, you're listening to me. Then I choose to be your friend. Screams incoherently. Early days. Rise and shine. He was having the dream again, wasn't he? Naruto knew it the moment he opened his eyes and found himself standing in a sewer for what felt like the umpteenth time when he inhaled and the cloying and musty scent of decay invaded his nose. When he moved, the faint slosh of water lapped against the legs of his jeans. When he strained his ears, he caught the distant sounds of deep breathing. Well, that confirmed it. A dream it was. Who thought up this tacky scenery anyway? Was this meant to intimidate him? And it had the first few times. Now it was already old hat to him. Naruto craned his neck, frowned in the dim light as the shadows played across his face. Here again, huh? It was always like this. Every night since he turned 17, this vision had plagued him without fail. That had been a month ago now. It wasn't even that unpleasant anymore. Really, just confusing. Every night he woke to find himself here, standing at the end of a long corridor, bleak metal green wall stretching into the distance as far as the eye could see. As always, he would glimpse something standing on the other side. Something. Or was it someone was waiting for him? He didn't know how he knew, only that he did. Just as he knew he'd failed to reach the other side in time, he always did. No matter how softly he stepped, no matter how quickly he managed to move, he suspected even if he ran at it full steam, he would inevitably wake before he found the end of the corridor. It was simply a fact of life, one that had grown increasingly tiresome. If this dream was trying to tell him something, it wasn't doing a very good job. Weren't visions supposed to do that? Impart nuggets of wisdom or something? Didn't stop him from wading through the swampy waters again anyway. Look, whoever you are, I don't get what you're trying to tell me. His voice echoed out into the dang corridor. But this needs to stop. Silence reigned supreme. A blonde brow twitched. Fine, be that way. Against his better judgment, the blonde surged forward in a mad dash, sending water spitting at his heels as his body blurred. Blue eyes squinted into the darkness and the salty spray, desperately trying to glimpse at the large attachment antechamber beyond. There was something there, something large, red. He just couldn't discern its shape, not yet, but he'd reach it in time. He was determined. Nothing would wake him before he made it. So it came as something of a surprise when he did, crashed into a room beyond the corridor at last, to finally find hot, fetid breath washed over his face. Teeth, lots of teeth, more than he could possibly count. Shit, what the hell is that? Reverse course, stop! Naruto slammed himself to a halt, water spraying up at his ankles. There was no other word for the creature looming before him, nor the toothy maw looming before him. The body connected to it. More so, gods, it just didn't end. Sprawled in the darkness like some kind of great god, it didn't make any move to attack. Worse, the beast didn't appear to be terribly interested in him. If anything, it seemed to be asleep. He wasn't sure if he should be appalled or relieved. It was just laying there in the darkness, snoring softly. There was something familiar about it, as though he'd found a long-lost friend, and each started in the back of his head. Wake up! Not this time, you bastard! Naruto growled. Who the hell are you? Wake up! I said no, goddammit! He gritted his teeth. Who are you? Why do you keep bringing me here? I said wake up! Now that aggravating itch ignited into full-blown pain, causing him to snarl and clutching at his aching skull. His boot shot out and kicked the creature right in the snout. Oh, for crying out loud! Pay attention to me, damn it! With that, he got his wish, though he'd soon regret it. A massive crimson eye snapped open to regard him in the black. Naruto sucked in a sharp breath through his teeth. His own His own reflection gazed back at him within that bloody iris, his own face. And yet not warmer, without his fondest traits, with less scars and a strange metal headband wrapped around his forehead. Then the terrifying eye blinked, and the image was gone, replaced by the giant freaking fox right in front of his face. Its voice was thunder in his ears. "You're not ready? Wait, what the hell is that?" Then a giant crimson paw came crashing down upon his head, and he knew no more. "Wake up!" Naruto's eyes snapped open with a start, not from Emerald's voice, but the inhuman snarl that haunted that last moments of his dream, just as well, too, because not a heartbeat later a pair of pillows sailed towards his face. He grabbed at the first, only to blink when his hand passed through it, looked so much empty air. Not so the second. The second was anything but an illusion. It smacked him right on the nose and sent him tumbling out of bed with a roar like a startled Ursa. To his credit, he successfully evaded the third, snatching it up with his tail and flung it back at her face. "Hey, what the hell, Em?" "Shush!" Her voice surged at him as he scrubbed sleep from his eyes. "We worked our asses off to get out of that hole in back row. Do you have any idea how hard it was to forge all that bloody paperwork?" His silver jacket sailed out and smacked him in the face as he struggled upright, fingers wrapping around the red streak material. "I'm not going back there because you slipped in." "Slipped in for what?" Naruto groaned, grumbling all the while. His mind reluctantly concluded its threat assessment and concluded he wasn't in peril by the time he pulled on a pair of worn black jeans alongside the tattered saffron shirt. "Right. One bed, a dirty window spilling shards of morning light into the room, walls of faded cream, and a carpet that hadn't been cleaned in months. This wasn't Vacuum. This was Vale. More aptly, this was their apartment, the one they had been renting for the better part of a week now, in preparation for... What was it again? Damn it. He'd forgotten, his bleary mind grasping at the details, and they slipped through his fingers like so much rainwater. So what the hell was he forgetting? Catch! Devil's retribution whipped towards his head from the corner of his eye, and Naruto instinctively snapped his treasured and amply named weapon out of the air, staggering a bit before the paired red and black blurs could whirl from his grasp to disseminate a nearby wall. His fingers closed around the curved blade as he swung it onto each arm, feeling it hum pleasantly beneath his grasp as the heavy metal within absorbed the impact, sealing it away to be unleashed later. They weren't small. On the contrary, anyone else would have struggled just to wield one of them with both hands, and here that he could wield one to each wrist spoke of his strength. Donning his weapons always felt like coming home, or it would have if he hadn't nearly lost his head just now. He said as much. "Watch it! You trying to kill me or something?" "Sorry." Emerald's head poked around the corner. Just get ready already, will you?" Securing the twin circular great shields to each wrist and careful to check his reflection in their polish, gave the young man's mind a moment to kick itself back into gear. He almost wished it hadn't. Pure adhesion still shimmered back up at him, and he saw his eyes widen within. All right. That was today, wasn't it? Emerald had every right to be mad at him then. Sure enough, a tan teenage blur shot past him, shedding and donning clothes in a whirling whirlwind of brown and green. "Come on, we're gonna be late for the hunter's exam. Quick, use your semblance to get us there." His ears twitched. "What? No, I'm not some glorified teleportation taxi. I'll buy you a week's worth of ramen," she shot back. Blue eyes lit up. "Done. Wait." Much to his annoyance, she stepped back when he approached and performed a quick spin. "How do I look?" Say what you would about her, but she certainly had a unique taste in fashion. Today's attire was much as it had always been, in that it consisted of a sand-worn white jacket alongside a shallow olive crop top and pants that hinted at the flowing curves beneath, with shorts flow down into brown chaps that ended at her calves, and long belt wrapped to keep her weapons in a pouch. thieves' respite winked out at him for a moment as she presented her back to him, her hips swaying just so, her hopeful expression. That sudden desire for his approval melted any resistance he might have mustered. This was the girl he'd fallen in love with, the girl he'd sworn to become a hunter with, and she was asking him how she looked. He never stood a chance. Naruto swallowed thickly, suddenly struck by an inexplicable urge to kiss his longtime friend, and bent her over. Down, boy! He ruthlessly slapped down his libido when it reared its ugly head. Alas, the same could not be said for his mouth, and a lone word tumbled out of his lips before he could think to hold himself back. Beautiful. No, bad tongue. This was mutiny. Em's face went red. Oh! She turned, twirling a strand of mint green hair in her fingers. Is that so? Do my hair, would you? It wasn't a command, but a request, one he responded to nonetheless. Reaching around, Naruto plucked a hair tie from the dresser and helped her bind her flowing green locks into a loose ponytail. Under normal circumstances, she preferred to wear it down, but he understood the need to make an impression. Emerald liked her hair. She'd taken to growing it out ages ago. He suspected it had something to do with a remark he made about it when they were children. Still, who was he to complain? She looked good, damn good at that, though he wasn't about to trust his tongue again, so he took a step forward again. Hold up. Her hand settled against his chest, his lips pursed in a thin line of displeasure. Now what? He wasn't expecting her to bury her head into his chest, wrap both arms around him, and inhale deeply. He felt down a pleasant shiver as her own scent rushed over him. At such close proximity, it was nearly impossible to ignore. She smelled of shampoo and mint, all warm, soft curves and toned muscles pressing against him. It felt nice, all things considered. She hadn't done this in a while, which left him utterly baffled as to why she had chosen to clamp him down. Weren't they running late already? Naruto croaked. What are you doing? She hummed happily into his chest. Just getting my fix. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Oh, a content emerald meant a mischievous emerald. This did not bode well for him, or maybe it did bode well. Girls were confusing, and he knew Emerald better than most. He didn't much feel like pushing her off at the moment. Meh. In the end, Naruto gave in and wrapped an arm around her waist. Don't let go, all right? He warned. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Scarlet eyes gleamed up at him. Let go of you? Never. And the world fell away. Naruto didn't much like his semblance. It was the one he was even now utilizing at this very moment, not the second that troubled him. All told, the second was suited to the skills he'd cultivated over the last 10 years. He learned to fight and win through any means necessary to cover distances quickly when engaging any and all opponents. Even he knew how uncommon it was to possess such a unique ability. One powerful semblance such as Emerald's was rare to begin with, but two, someone capable of wielding two separate semblances, that was unheard of. But he disagreed. His first, not so aptly named Flash allowed him and anyone in contact with him to travel between any point he had marked with aura-infused ink. A touch was all it took to mark something, and he could mark a lot before his reserves ran low. On paper, it sounded like a perfect semblance, near instantaneous teleportation. Emerald had once equated it to something called fast travel from one of her video games. In combat, it was particularly potent, and not quite super speed, but something on another level entirely. The downside, each jump was a blind one. All the world would turn bright and gold whenever Naruto used his semblance, and he often had little control of how he landed, nor could he see who or what was on the other side until he'd already made the leap, as it were. Longer jumps would leave him exhausted for days at a time. The more passengers, the more strain he would know. He tried to jump back-to-back real once when he was younger. Once, the return trip had left him with a raging fever, leaving an uppity, frantic Emerald to nurse him back to health. It wasn't something he was keen to try again. Fortunately, the apartment they'd rented with the last of their savings wasn't far from the academy. Unfortunately, the landing wasn't exactly gentle this time around. Ugh! Emerald's arms tightened around him as reality snapped back into existence, holding on for dear life. They didn't so much land as they did drop, because he'd placed the mark for his siblings just a little higher than he should have. Better for it to be high up and hard to reach, as well as remove, than risk it being discovered and destroyed. Still, their landing was rather softly, all things considered. Not bad, hotshot. Emerald hummed, content in his arms. You stuck the landing this time without any problems. Good job. I'll say, a new voice groaned beneath them, causing the unlikely pair to jump. There's just a tiny little problem. Well, maybe not so tiny. Naruto and Emerald looked down as one. Looked down as one. Much to their dismay, a pair of black, wiry rimmed aviator sunglasses stared back at them, framed by daring dark hair and a young woman's rueful yet pained smile. Well, that much was to be expected, given they were all but sitting on her stomach and pinned her to the ground. A beat of silence passed between the trio, then another still. Hello there, the victim groaned, patting Naruto's tail. Could you get off me, please? The blonde spun upright with a mortified yelp, pulling his partner with him. Sorry. And caramel-colored eyes regarded them as she climbed to her feet. Well, you didn't have to do it that fast. Scented and Emerald bristled as she laid eyes on the girl. The newcomer, whom she solemnly swore to refer to as sunglasses henceforth, had a unique taste in fashion. For that was exactly what the brunette seemed to be wearing. The latest designer brands from Atlas to Bell, a long cocoa-colored shirt with dark brown trousers with ribbons, and a waist cincher to match. For some strange reason, she had a number of cartridges slung into her belt along the length of her hips, alongside a long drape of black skirts hanging on her right side. And of course, she had to top off the look with a pair of dark brown high-heeled leather boots with more buckles. Did this girl had a fetish for buckles and ammo belts or something? Worse, Naruto seemed to have taken it into his head to give her a once-over. You're not hurt, are you? We landed pretty hard. Don't sweat it, hot stuff. Sunglasses hummed, dusting herself off. It's not every day I get double-teamed. Emerald bristled anew at the insinuation. Who the hell are you? Sunglasses sketched a shallow bow. Coco Adele, aspiring huntress at your service. She paused with a touch of flair, straightened, and touched a finger to her smirking lips. At least I will be once I ace this test. Say, that's a nice semblance you've got there, Whiskers. Her head tilted regarding something over his shoulder. Teleportation, right? Haven't seen one like that before. Must be useful. She flashed a wink at him. Can I keep you? Naruto nearly choked on his own tongue, and Emerald was only a beat behind. What? Kidding, I'm kidding. She laughed. Naruto blinked, ears flattening against his head. So how did you... Well, I was looking at that before the two of you came dropping in. The now named Coco waved up at the black steel mark. Had Naruto placed on the wall, and sure enough, their gaze followed hers. He'd marked a random patch of stone on the academy grounds. Not very smart in hindsight, but he hadn't been thinking at the time. Mistakes were made. Without a thought, he leaped up and slapped his palm against the mark to banish it. Well, I was wondering who had the balls to slap graffiti up there. Coco paused to plant a hand on her hips as she tilted her shades down, exposing those bright eyes again. You've got stones, kid. What's your name? Naruto. Surely there wasn't any harm in telling her that, was there? Foreign. Her grin blossomed anew. I like that. Emerald didn't. Something ugly had reared its head in her heart, and the moment she laid eyes on this girl, and now it bared its teeth like angry dragon in the face of this unprecedented threat. Was this jealousy? She wondered if it was. Emerald had never experienced the like before. She'd spent years honing her skills alongside her partner, trained up her semblance to the point that it was the literal equivalent of a mindfuck. As they traveled the world together, moving to Vel and trying to become hunters had been her choice as much as his. The life of a thief was a poor one, and they'd wanted something better than vacuo. Atlas. Atlas had been a rude awakening. Damn Naruto and his curiosity. Why did he have to steal those shields? And now, on the first day of what was to be their new life, someone sauntered in and said things to him Emerald would never dare speak aloud. Already, she felt the beginnings of her semblance start to sizzle in response to her stress. It wasn't that this girl was pushy. On the contrary, she walked a fine line between sense and snark, navigating that tender tightrope with ease. She was just so full of personality. Under any other circumstances, Emerald was certain they would have gotten along swimmingly, but now that personality that was directed towards Naruto, her Naruto, he didn't even seem to realize it, fiddling her endless questions as he did. Well, she could change that, couldn't she? Just the thought, a bit of focus on Coco and her semblance would do the rest. Not Naruto. He'd see what she was up to right away. Better to startle her rival then. Her mind actually rebooted for a moment, causing the girl to blink. Reality slapped her. Oh God, she had a rival on her first day. Right, that did it. She was pissed. Naruto sensed something amiss immediately. He knew it by the chill that shot down his spine. Just as he saw Emerald's red eyes begin to brighten, she was about to unleash her semblance, a tale so minuscule that only he saw it. And even then, that slip of knowledge was born from spending years together. No one else could possibly notice. Frankly, it was something of a miracle that he did, likely because he'd been exposed to it time and time again in the last decade. So long as she didn't catch him when he was half asleep, he could always tell fact from fiction. Hey now, which is precisely why he slipped in and laid a hand on Emerald's shoulder before she could do anything untowards to Coco. We're all friends here, are we? Emerald's smile was a touch too sweet. I can't recall. Coco caught it too, because she hefted her purse over her shoulder. Wait, was that thing a purse? Emerald wondered. It looked more like a briefcase. Was that supposed to be her weapon? Beggars couldn't be choosers, she supposed, but now the look the girl was shooting them looked almost coy by comparison. Wait, are you two? She made a motion with her fingers. Together? Naruto frowned. Not like that. So you're free for the taking then. Good to know. Thankfully, someone intervened before Emerald could throttle her. Oh gods! A distant voice cried out in meek dismay. Coco, what did you do this time? The brunette's head snapped to the side as the rapid sound of footfalls approached. Nothing, Bun. Just making new friends. Hey, don't drag me. Not another one. We're already late, came the whine. We don't have time for friends. Sure enough, a brown blur latched onto the fashionista and promptly began to haul her off. Emerald was half inclined to let her. Never mind being late. Losing a few minutes was more than worth it if she meant she could distance herself from this girl. She would have gotten away with it too, if Naruto hadn't seized the opening and snagged her by the wrist, dragging him forward after them at a brisk pace. The illusionist tried to dig her heels in, to no avail. Traitor! A bland look silenced her. Oh, hush! We're going the same way. This here's Velvet Scarlatina, Coco said by way of greeting as they caught up. Don't mind her, she's sighing. The girl offered a meek wave. Hello. Emerald immediately realized the newcomer was Faunus, if only because of her rabbit ears. By contrast, her doe-like eyes made her seem almost harmless, clad in a brown long-sleeved jacket that wrapped down all around her chest or over her shirt. She wore golden spalders and vambraces on both arms, with a similar belt, and her heels and toes were likewise defended. Her leggings were more of the same, but by then Emerald had already dismissed her as harmless. If Coco was an alpha predator, then this one was a harmless little bunny by comparison. No pun intended. It didn't mean she had to like the way the girl was looking at Naruto. You're a Faunus? Much to her chagrin, the blonde preened. Ears gave it away, huh? Velvet's own perked up. No, not at all. It's just I couldn't help but notice your tail. Fluffy, right? Coco reached out to brush a hand through the golden fur, causing the whiskered warrior to jolt. Stop that, he hissed, swatting her hand. Oh ho, sensitive, are we? The brunette waggled a brow at him. Makes sense. I guess Velvet's kind of the same way with your ears and all. Coco! What? Just being honest. Emerald wanted nothing to do with that conversation, but a thought occurred to her, and she seized on it as they walked. Why were you running late? Velvet's ears drooped at the distraction, and the poor girl suddenly looked like someone had kicked her puppy. Coco's fault, not mine. I needed my coffee, okay? The brunette flung up her hands. That Ville shop is disgusting. What's your excuse? Naruto and Emerald exchanged a wry, knowing look. Don't you dare! The latter willed at him. Slept in, the former confessed immediately, scratching the back of his head. Seriously? Coco guffed right back. Didn't take you for the type. I'm not. Naruto sniffed, his pride wounded. Em kept me up. Emerald stomped on his foot, drawing a whine. Why? No reason. She stuck her tongue at him. In short order, the unlikely quartet burst their way to Beacon with a few other latecomers, all the while Emerald prayed she'd never see Coco or Velvet again, that they'd simply go their separate ways and be done with one another. No more interruptions, no more new faces. It was a simple wish, she thought. Surely the gods would grant it. The gods laughed at her. She knew it the moment her shoulder clipped someone who wasn't Naruto. To be fair, it wasn't Emerald's fault. She'd been clinging to his arm, and he hadn't gone out of her way to bump into anyone deliberately. Someone had tried to pull past them and wound up clipping her instead. She glimpsed her hair and a pair of broad shoulders out of the corner of her eye before she wrenched her head back. Nope, not doing it. Not interacting with whoever the hell that was. She didn't want to people anymore today. Her first instinct was to clamp down on her tongue, lest she draw even more attention to themselves. Hey, leave her partner to raise his voice. Watch where you're going. The redhead turned, and Emerald glimpsed a frown setting a pale face. It was a young man, thank the gods, clad almost entirely in black. It made his slim figure and sharp eyes all the more striking. Wait, was that a sword at his belt? My apologies. His voice was crisp and brisk, as though he were reciting lines from a script. I wasn't paying attention. The tension in his shoulders and the death grip on his weapon told another story. He looked fit to burst at any moment. Indeed, when his gaze found Naruto and Velvet, he almost looked as though he would speak further. Only then did he deign to finally look at her and Coco. Whatever the stranger saw between the four of them must have calmed him somehow, because those stern eyes softened and his hand fell from the hilt of his sword. You gonna say something else, angsty? Coco arched an eyebrow as she tapped her foot. Her quip almost made Emerald smile. What was it with this girl and her nicknames? The swordsman blinked, somewhat taken back by her blazing tone. Shaking his head, he muttered something and strode away. Emerald followed him, the faintest frown on her lips. It sounded almost like he'd said, acceptable. Who the hell was that? Naruto shrugged. Who knows? They continued on in companionable silence after that, and soon arrived at their destination. No sooner did they reach the academy grounds than they found themselves bundled together and crammed into the auditorium like a pack of sardines. Emerald wasn't surprised to see a microphone waiting on stage. Well, that settled her suspicions. Someone would be given a speech, she realized with a pang of dread. Perhaps it was the vacuole girl in her, but she loathed speeches. They were flowery and waste of time. Actions were what mattered. Now pretty words on stage. Any attempt on her part to slip away was ruthless, thwarted as the bodies pressed in tightly around her and her companions, pinning them in place. Coco and Velvet all crushed in against them. Bastards! Why had she agreed to become a huntress again? When a hand found her shoulder, she almost jumped. Breathe. Naruto's voice was a warm breath in her ears. We're not in any danger here. Emerald squirmed, suddenly aware of just how close they were to each other, and not at all disliked it. I hate speeches, she grumbled, flicking a glare over her shoulder. You know that. There's no point to them. Maybe not. Her partner wavered her with a roguish grin, but his eyes narrowed when he saw her hand stray towards Coco's pocket. Don't. We're not thieves anymore, Em. She wilted. Sorry, old habits die hard. His chin settled on her shoulder. They do, don't they? Emerald felt a slow blush heat the back of her neck. What are you doing? Getting comfy, came the yawn. Something tells me we're going to be here a while. What? Don't fall asleep on me. She shook herself to throw him off. I know what you're doing. You're trying to distract me. Blue eyes twinkled Blue eyes twinkled merely. It worked, didn't it? Sure enough, by the time she turned back to the stage, a smartly dressed man, clad in black with pale hair, Ospen, not to whisper to her, had already stepped up to the mic. Coughing into his fist, he commanded their attention. I'll keep this brief. I see many of you here before me today. Some from Atlas, Mistral, Vale, and even Vacuole. Naruto and Emerald perked up when that bespectacled gaze raked over them. Whatever your backgrounds, whatever your past, you have traveled here in search of knowledge to hone your craft and acquire new skills. He paused for effect, waiting for his words to sink in. And when you have finished, you plan to dedicate your life to the protection of the people. As I look amongst you now, I see the potential for greatness, but also wasted energy in need of purpose and direction. Coco sneezed, but still Osman continued. You assume knowledge will free you of this, but your time at this school will prove that knowledge will only carry you so far. His gaze swept over each of them, from a slight-looking girl bearing a whip, a stunning young man clad in a sensual red dress. It is up to you to take the first step, and in that, I wish you well. With that, he stepped aside, and a woman in white stepped forth to take his place. You will gather in the ballroom tonight, she instructed, keen eyes boring into each of them in turn. Tomorrow your initiation begins. Until then, you are free to move about the campus as you see fit. Dismissed. Sounds like quite the wait, Emerald groused. I'll say, someone grumbled. She thought it was Naruto's voice, but then she turned. She found a boy with silver hair and leather armor waiting for her. What? Where the devil had her partner gone? Red eyes flicked left, then right to no avail. Somewhere in between the speeches, the press of bodies had parted, and they'd been separated. He wasn't anywhere to be seen. Nor were Coco or Velvet at that. Where had they gone? I'm sorry, she muttered, trying to excuse herself from the mess she'd fallen into. I thought you were someone else. I get it a lot. Mercury Black. The silver-haired youth beamed and offered his hand. Nice to meet you. Emerald twitched, not out of any dislike for the silver-haired boy, but something else. She'd always been able to read people, even as a little girl. If a thief didn't know how to read their mark, said thief didn't live long. It was the mistake she'd made once when she was little once. Once, never again. Ever since she'd kept her guard up, and something about him made a silent voice in the back of her head hiss. So she refused his hand and stepped back half a pace. Then another still. Sorry, she said. I don't shake hands with strangers. Mercury arched a demure eyebrow. What's wrong? Scared? Emerald bristled. Of you? Hardly. She was terrified. I didn't. Come on, Naruto's voice called somewhere behind her. We've got to go. We got to get ready. Where the hell did you go, Red Eyes? Of course, that was Coco again. Right, they're looking for me. She sighed, relieved. Gotta go. Perhaps she'd have hesitated. She should have watched him. Instead, she turned, dismissed him in her haste. She missed the near Mercury shot at her back. See you around. Previews. Where? Emerald slammed forward at the moment she hit the forced floor. She needed to move. Needed. To her credit, she made 9 steps before a whooping streak of silver and gold struck the ground before her like a falling comet. Naruto straightened in the dust, shields collapsing on themselves, having cushioned his fall. Bastard actually struck a pose, one hand poised toward the sky. I have arrived! Emerald couldn't help herself, even as she started laughing, her burned from grateful tears. Tears she scrubbed away from her partner before her partner could see, because that was precisely who he was. Bah! It's not like we can't handle ourselves here. Devil's retribution smashed through an ursum, slashed into a beowulf, and rebounded off a nearby tree to land in his waiting grasp once more. I feel grim after what we've been through. Child's play. The ones in Vacuole were worse. Emerald straightened a shutter. That was putting it mildly. A distant crunch said otherwise. Huh. Naruto noted. Somebody just died. Emerald shrugged. and nothing of value was lost. With a silent fist bump, Gold and Emerald continued onward. Emerald swore. Velvet whimpered. Naruto sucked in a breath. Why is that bastard pulling her ears? He was up and out of his seat before Coco could stop him. Hey, wait, she can handle. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm just going to talk to that boy, loudly, repeatedly, with my fists. Without another word, the enraged blonde stalked across the cafeteria, ignoring any and all attempts to call him back. All three women watched in quiet silence at what followed, their heads tilted near a horizontal to follow each and every moment. Mercury sauntered over, saw the disaster, and paused to whistle. Damn, didn't know you could bend the human body that way. Looks painful. Coco snapped picture. I'll say. Naruto stormed back with sound and aplomb. Velvet draped in his arms like a princess. If the latter made a quiet kitty noise before her teeth, no one dared comment on it. No one dared look at her face either. Her cheeks were just as red as her name before she buried her head in his chest. Nobody messes with our bunny. End of chapter 2.